Okay, so I'm going to just open up Blender 4.3 here. And again, who in here has used Blender before? Few people? Okay, good. Like I said, we're not going to get into all the ins and outs of it. We're going to just do the basics of what we need to do to get through this. All right, so we are going to be using the 2D animation tool for the next week in animation, okay? And this is primarily what we're going to be using Blender for is going to be using the 2D animation portion of the software, okay? So when you first open Blender, you can just hit 2D animation, okay? And it's going to create a 2D animation setup for you to use. Okay, so one of the main things that Blender has going for it, I think, is this 2D animation setup that they've put into Blender since version 2.8. It's gotten better since then, but I think this is one of their strong suits. And again, it's something that is a slow adoption, but being used a little more every year, so we'll see where it ends up. But the basic interface can be a little wonky at times. I'm not sure if any of you have ever seen the Blender Guru on YouTube, but he did actually a talk at the Blender conference this year, talking specifically about how Blender has to do a better job of making their interface a little more workable for general artists. So it is a known issue, and if they can resolve some of those issues, it might be used a little more than it is today in pipelines. So basic tools. Just to get around a scene, right now we're looking at just a blank canvas, but if I use my middle mouse button and just drag away from the camera, you're going to see that I jump into 3D space. Right? And we're just looking at a white backdrop on a perspective scene with a camera set up pointing at the middle of space. Right? So to move around, it's just the middle mouse button drag. If I hold down Shift, I can do a pan across middle mouse. Okay, so Shift plus middle mouse, and then I can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. All right, so tumble is middle mouse, hold down Shift, pan with middle mouse, and zoom in and out with your wheel button. Or you can do Control, drag middle mouse, and it'll go in and out as well. Okay. To jump back to the camera, it's very easy. You just hit 0 on your numpad, and it'll jump back to your canvas. Okay. If you want to jump to full screen drawing, you can just do Control Spacebar, and it'll jump to full screen for you. Okay? You can see here on the bottom, the default setup here, we're looking at the drawing tools, obviously, and then here we have another window that gives us the grease pencil dope sheet. Okay, so this is the main dope sheet. This one just shows the grease pencil objects here, and you can see that it has a stroke, it has line and fill underneath it. If we look over here under the data tool, it looks like a little wiggly line there. You're going to see that we have layers over here. And then in here on the top, we have what looks like the outliner from Maya, right? That's basically all it is. It's just set up a different way. So you can see here that it's by creating that 2D animation setup, it's created what it calls a stroke. Okay? And that is basically just a canvas for you to draw on. Okay, so that's what is going to contain this node here is what's going to contain the lines, the fills, etc. that are part of that stroke. If we're down in here in the layers, just like Photoshop, you can add layers, right? Or you can take away layers, and you're going to simply draw on the different layers just like you would in Photoshop. Now, what I'm asking you guys to do is nothing but just line drawing. Don't worry about fills, don't worry about color, don't worry about any of that. Just working with a basic black pencil. We're going to be using basic brushes, okay? Just color black. That's all I'm asking you to do. Nothing else, nothing too fancy, okay? Now, I like the soft brush pencil myself. You guys can use whatever pencil you prefer, but I like having this one here, and I usually have the strength a little higher. I like about a 0.6 or a 0.8 on that pencil, and it does a pretty good job. Like it's got a nice brush to it, I think. Not quite as finesse as Harmony, but it does a pretty good job. You want to make sure that you have your pens ready to go, and this is why you want to have access to a tablet in the lab or at home. so that you can utilize the tool, okay? So again, this is personal preference. Definitely choose what you feel is good for you. I prefer the soft touch pencil myself, okay? So you can see that down here we have an auto key, just like Maya. The little red button at the bottom here, you want to make sure that's activated. Yeah?
How did you get to draw mode?
Yeah, draw mode, click on the stroke in your outliner. If you don't have a stroke, you can create a stroke. And also, when you created a new scene, let me show you. If you go File, New, you see 2D animation there? If you start from there, okay, it's going to create one for you by default, okay? But if not, you can add a stroke and you can do the same thing, okay? But you need to have a stroke in order to go into that, okay? Okay, so you can see that when I create a drawing, right, it's going to add a keyframe automatically, and it has onion skinning built into it that you can change the value or the opacity of as you kind of work along. Very similar to what Harmony in that does. Again, very straightforward 2D setup with a couple quirks in that as to how it works, right? But I think it's a very good tool, and I think it's got a lot of things that are really going for it that I think we might see more use of in the industry as we kind of move forward. Now, obviously, you have, eraser, all the basics. You can just grab a key down here by selecting it and deleting the key. Go back to like frame 1, just grab that. You can see it's just the lines there. Delete that, or I can erase it. Okay? Okay, so again, if I want to jump to full canvas, it's Control Spacebar for full canvas. I can then use the mouse wheel to pull that canvas out and show the boundaries of my canvas. This is a 1920 by 1080 camera. I'm looking through the camera here, right? So you got to think of it as more than just a 2D plane as you would in Harmony, but it's actually a camera that you're looking through that you can do multi-plane work and all kinds of stuff with, right? Like I think it's pretty amazing what you can do with the you can animate literally on three-dimensional objects. It's pretty cool what it can do. Okay, so what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be working with image planes. We're going to be bringing in our video reference, and we're also going to be bringing in a background plate to use for reference as we draw. Blender has a couple ways of bringing in reference. You can literally drag a JPEG and drop it into the viewport, and it will create a reference for you, either a movie clip or an image. But that creates what's called a reference clip, and it will not render. Okay, so if you want to have a renderable set of like a video or an image, then you have to put it as a texture on an actual plane. And in 4.3.2, they've actually built that into the options that are available, okay? So to do that, I'll show you here. Now, we can't do it here. If you look up here, we have View and Draw, okay? So if I want to bring in, now this is where it differs a little bit from Maya, okay? So if I want to bring in an image plane, okay, I can't be in the Draw mode to show my Add menu, okay? So if I want to do that, I have to go up here, and you can see these are my different modes, okay? So it's kind of like component mode and object mode in Maya. Think of it that way. This is like just those different modes in a drop-down menu, okay? So we have object mode, which is like selecting objects, moving objects around, right? And then we have the edit mode, sculpt mode, draw mode, and then your vertex paint and weight mode, right? So your edit mode is your component mode, right? Your object mode is your selection mode. And then we have the draw mode, right? That's what we're doing for our 2D animation. So when if you want to select a camera, if you want to select a cube, if you want to select a light, that's going to be your object mode. If you want to create something, it's going to be in your object mode. If you want to create a camera, it's in object mode. Okay? If you want to edit the components of that camera, it's going to be in the edit mode. And if you want to do 2D drawing, you have to be in the draw mode. But to get the 2D drawing option, you have to have the stroke activated. If you don't have the stroke activated, you will not see the draw option in that menu. Okay? So if you don't see the draw option over here, go over here and activate or highlight the stroke node in your outliner or your collection in Blender, and you will then get that draw option. Okay? Yes? If you need to create a stroke, you don't see a stroke, you can add a new stroke. Okay? So if you are in your object mode, so if I go to object mode, you can see I have this add menu, or you can hit Shift A for a hotkey. And you can see here that you can go down to grease pencil and you can add what's called a stroke. Okay? And that just is an object, right? It's a three-dimensional stroke. Okay? Okay, so we're going to start by simply importing in. So I'm in object mode right now. I'm going to go to add. And if you go down to where it says image, and here we have what's called reference, background, and mesh plane. Okay? So the reference is strictly just a reference to a video clip. The background image will bring in a plate, but they're non-renderable. Okay? Which is fine in many cases. But if I want to have the object actually renderable, so if I want to have the plane actually show the background and have that in my playblast at the end, I do have to put it in as a mesh plane. Yeah?
We don't have that option.
Yeah, you have to be in 4.3.2.
I mean, that I just downloaded it.
Okay, this is 4.3.2. It should be in there. Let me see. Oh no, you got to go into your object mode.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, if you don't have the add option, you got to go into your object mode, right? That's your selection mode in Maya, right? So if you hit like the 8 key in Maya, it takes you to your selection mode. The object mode is your selection mode, okay? So then you'll get that add option. Okay, so the mesh plane, what it does is it actually creates a texture, a material for your image, okay? And it puts it on a plane, right? And that makes it renderable. Okay, so I prefer to have that, and then I can actually make that transparent or whatever I want to do, or make it non-renderable later on, versus having something that's non-renderable from the get-go. Okay, so I'm going to create a plane, and I'll bring in a background plate first. Okay, so I'm going to hit that, and it's going to pop me right into what I want to have on that plane. So I'm going to go into my folder here, and I have some images, and I got a background image right here. So to get your background image, now you guys might not have it right now, but what you can do is, again, just open up that Maya scene and just do a one-frame render of your setup, your camera, right? And that's going to be your background plate. I like to have the character turned on when I have that because it allows me to reference the character rig as well as the set. Okay, yes?
So to add a reference, we have the 3 modes: reference, background, and mesh plane. What do we do with the reference? What does it do? I forgot the difference in the mesh plane and the reference.
Yeah, so the reference is non-renderable. The plane creates a physical texture which you can have, which renders, right?
So I'm sorry. So reference and background are both non-renderable.
That's right, yeah.
What is the main difference between the two?
Well, if you just want to reference in some images just to use as you're working, you can quickly just drag it onto the viewport. It'll pop it in as that.
But as a background, it would be.
It won't render it though. So if you want to have something like this where we physically want to render out your video reference as well as your drawings, it has to exist as a texture.
I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm just more wondering, why does Blender put a difference between background?
It's just quick. It's just quick and easy. You can just literally drag something on if you're just using it temporarily, and then just get rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah, just to make it easy. Yep. No, if you want to have it renderable, then you can't use that option. So they used to have this available as an add-on earlier, and now they've actually just made it as a default option. So, yeah, does that make sense?
So I'm not asking about what's renderable. I'm asking about the difference.
The use case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When would you use reference? When would you use background?
When I'm working quickly in Studio and I just want to reference a piece of video quickly, I'll just drag it on, and it'll automatically default to that. And then it's non-renderable for the pipeline, right?
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yep. Okay, so I'll just, now a couple options here. I'm going to have this under, it's going to create a texture, right? So under here, I'm going to set my, let's see here, my shader over to emission, and I'm going to go from dithered to blend it, and everything else should be fine. Okay, and I'm going to bring that in. And now up here, over in the corner here, there's 4 options here, right? And this is just your wireframe, shaded mode, textured mode, or lighting mode, right? That's all it is. It's just that it's placed in a different position. So your 4, 5, 6, 7 in Maya is just up there in those little circles, right? So the first circle is wired, the second circle is shaded, the third circle is textured, 4th circle is rendered. Okay, that's all that means. So if I want to see the texture on my plane, I have to be in the texture mode, which is the 3rd circle in. Okay, so you have to, if I turn it to just the shaded mode, right? So if I go to this one, right, it's going, I'm not going to see the image. Or if I go to wired, it obviously makes it a wireframe. So I'm just going to turn it on to texture mode. All right. So it brought it in. Now I just want to scale that up because it's a physical plane in space, right? So if I, let me just show you. I'll just like wheel around here. There's my plane. It's a physical plane with a texture on it, right? I'm going to jump back to shot here. And I'm going to scale it. So in Blender, the scale, translate, rotate hotkeys. Scale is S, translates G, and rotate is R. Okay. When you're scaling or translating, it's actually quite handy. When you want to scale in a certain axis, you can actually pick that axis with a hotkey at the same time that you actually want to scale it. So if I want to scale in Y, I hit SY, and it'll scale in Y. Right? If I want to translate in X, I'll hit GX, and it will translate in X only. Okay? If I want to move it globally, I could hit G for translate, and it will move it globally. Right? That's how it works, and I'll show you here. If I want to scale this plane, and I just hit S, so in here, do like that, it will scale up globally. Okay? So I could just scale it up to the size of my shot. And if I want to undo that while I'm doing it, so if I have the scale here and I hit S and I'm like, oh, wait a sec, I didn't want to do that, I could right-click and it'll pop me out of that mode. Okay? Which is quite handy. So if you translate it and you're like, oh, I didn't want to translate that, you could right-click and it'll just pop it back to where you started from. Okay? So I'm going to hit S here and scale it up. So now the problem with the texture here is that this is like full color, right? So it's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt when I'm trying to draw because it's very bright, it's very bold. I want to actually make it a little transparent, a little kind of blend it back in the background. A couple ways you can do it. I'm going to show you a way to actually change the value and change the transparency of the object itself. Very straightforward. There's a couple ways you can do it. I'm going to show you one way to do it. So I'm going to open up a second window. Now, the great thing about Blender is that the interface is completely customizable. You can literally do whatever you want in whatever window you want in Blender. And how you create new windows, if I go over here and I see how my cursor goes from that little arrow to the target there, right? If I just drag out, right, it just drags out a window. And I could drag out as many windows as I want, right? If I want to have this shift around or drag this around, like it's very easy to do whatever you want in whatever window you want to create. So in this case, I'm going to go over here to this little icon in the corner. These are all the different editors in that you can use in Blender, right? So I'm going to change this window over to the shader editor for a second, okay? So just in this little window here, I'm going to go down to the shader editor. And you can see I have my, my background selected here. So here's the shader network for that object, right? So here's the shader. And then we have the image, right? So all I want to do is I want to play with the alpha here a little bit and make it so it's a bit transparent. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to add, I'm going to go input, and I'm just going to go down to value. I'm just going to add a value node, okay? And all I'm going to do is go from that value node, and I'm going to drop it into the alpha. See, it just takes it out, and then I can just change that. So I can go like a 0.6 or something, right? And what it does is it just makes it a little transparent. So that's the only thing we're doing to that network, very straightforward. And now it gives me the ability, right, to have a bit of a transparent plate instead of something that is very bold and hard to work with, okay? So again, that's the network there. And we can go in and we can adjust that to whatever we want. If you want it to be a little like a 0.9 or whatever, you can go in and adjust that. But very, very handy, okay? So you can see here, if I right-click on the line here right in the middle, okay? If I go here, my cursor changes that little double arrow there. I can join right or left, all right? Or I can change the way that the windows are set up, right? So I can see if I want to join this to here, right? It'll just take that out and make it one window again, okay? So again, very flexible in a lot of ways. I'm not going to go into any more detail of like the technicalities of Blender. You guys can investigate a lot of that on your own. But I'm just giving you kind of the basics of how to get around here. So you can see now we have our background plate in there. Now our background plate is like literally right on the camera. So if I want to just push that back a little bit, all I'd have to do is hit G and then hit Y just to go in the Y plane and just back it up a little bit. So if I go back here, I can just rescale that just to size it up just a little bit. Oops, I want to go straight up. Go back here, scale, straight up. Right, so now I have a little breathing space between the camera and that background plate. And the reason for that is I want to have the stroke right up on the front, whereas I want the plates to be a little bit back. And I'm going to put my reference video on top of this as well. Okay, so I don't want them to overlap. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my video reference. Okay, so I'm going to go under in object mode again here. I'm going to go add image and go down to a second image plane or mesh plane, and I'm going to bring in some reference. So I'm going to go down here to, in my case, I've saved a PNG file, set of files here. So I'm going to just select all of these. And then I'm going to go to the detect image sequence option here. And again, I'm just going to make sure that that is set up with the same way I did the last one under material. And I'll import that. Okay, and then it'll come in. And if you've selected all your images, okay, it's going to play back for you. All right. Now, to position that up in the right-hand corner, all I have to do is hit G and then just guide it in the axis that I want it to go in. So in this case, we're going to go X and Z to drag it up here. So I'm going to go GX, right, and I'm going to just drag it over. So let's put it there, and I'll go like GZ. And then I'll just pull it up here, right? So it's just in the top corner there, and I can see it all moving along there, and that's what I want, right? That's my reference. If I want to scale it up a little bigger, I can just hit S, and I can scale it up a little bit if I need to see it a little clearer. It's all good, right? And again, it's just for reference. Now, one thing that we need to do, though, is we need to import our sound clip. So I'm going to let's create another window again here. So I'm going to actually go over here, drag out another window. And I'm going to change this over to my video sequencer. Okay, so again, that little button right there. And I want to add in my sound clip. Okay, so I'm going to go add. And I'm going to go down to sound. And again, I'll just go into my project file here under my sounds, which is where your 3 sounds are saved as well. I'm just going to grab one of these sounds and I'll import it, okay? It's going to add it in for you. You can see that it added it in, not at frame 1. It adds it in where your current position on the timeline is, right? So if I want to have that at frame 1, I can just drag the clip and pull it back to frame 1, okay? And then it's going to be there. Now, you can see that I can't hear it, though, right? So if I want to hear it while I scrub, there's a couple things that I have to do. So I'm going to go here. Right now I'm in the dope sheet. I'm going to flip this over to what's called the timeline. F12, Shift F12, okay? And in here, there's a couple things here. Keyframe, right? We're not going to worry about this right now. There's a couple things in here that you will change when you're doing 3D animation. But for just sound playback, under the playback here, we want to make sure this is changed to sync to audio and that your scrubbing is enabled, okay? And then it should now scrub and play back properly because that is activated. Spacebar will play it back. Okay, but now you can see everything is set up ready to go. Okay, so again, that's under there. Sync to audio and scrubbing is enabled. Okay, so now with that sunk up, I'm just going to go here and I'm going to join that back over. And I'd recommend saving your project at that point. I'm just going to throw in this as a demo. Let's put 2 here. Okay, and you can start drawing at that point, right? So I don't need any keys in here at this point. Let me just, actually I think these are scale keys. Let me just bring these back here. Okay, so I'm going to flip this to my dope sheet. Yeah, see, dope sheet, remind you of something? It comes from here. This is called a dope sheet. All right? That's where the technology of the words come from. Okay? It comes from this guy. So this guy is literally this turned like this, right? Just to plan it out. All right, so flip that over. And now I can start my work. So I have my auto key turned on. And I can just do Control Spacebar to bring up the full screen here. I can make this a little larger if I want. And I can start working out my stuff. So now let's talk about gesture and approach to the scene itself. All right, so now we're going to just jump into talking about gestures, right? So when we're at this stage of the game, we've got our video reference. We've built, taken our timesheet and we've kind of planned out where we want things to happen. Now you're going to go in and you're going to put your pose cap on, right? That's what you're going to think about only at this point, okay? So now you're not worrying about timing, you're not worrying about spacing, you're not worrying about all these other things. I want you to think about posing and shape language, right? So again, it's separating things out. It's pulling the threads out of the complexity of jumping into Maya and doing everything at once and breaking things down into stages. So how do you make good, solid performances? Well, you have your performance that you have created through your acting skills, but then you also now go in and you design your shape language on top of that. As animators, that's what we do. We animate shape. We animate 2D shape, right? You could make your animation a silhouette of black and watch that shape move around on the screen. That's really all we're doing. We animate shapes back and forth, right? So the shape language is really important. When we're coming to creating a pose of our 3D character, it has to read properly as a shape. Like if you have, like I said before, if you want to look at posing the hand, if you were to grab the cup and pull that cup up, if you're in Maya, you'd probably grab the fingers and you'd go like this. And then you're like, okay, I'm tired. I've been dealing with 150 controllers. I don't care at this point what the hell the cup looks like with the hand in it, right? But if you just separate that out and just think about your shape language of your hand grabbing that cup when you're just drawing it out, because you guys love drawing, right? That's what you're here for. You could take the time, do a little research, and get the shape language for that hand pose, right? Then you can take this into Maya and you can just focus on posing that to match what you've done here, right? It'll help you create the shape language for your shot, okay? And that is really important. So this is where you want to utilize gesture. We're not in here to draw fancy drawings. I'm not asking you to be an amazing draftsman here. I want you to gesture out. Think of 30-second gestures. That's what you're doing here, okay? And you're going through, the first thing you want to do is think about your golden poses, right? Your storytelling poses. We want to go through here and indicate where those are and actually pose them out and get a feeling for what that is. So I like to have the character in the background because I can refer to just the basic design. So if you're animating Chris or May or the big guy here, I just like having like the general shape and size of the character, so I can kind of refer back to that, kind of like a model sheet. And then I like having the background in here, so I can refer to the actual HD placement of the background, where the cup is. You know, you guys can move these props around, I don't care, but like the basic like table placement and things like that, right? And then you can start drawing. So on frame 1, right, I like to go in here. I'll flip this over to just widescreen here, and I'll have to be in my pencil or my draw mode here. So I'm going to go to, you can see if I look here, I don't see draw mode. But if I go in here, and that's because I'm on background, if I grab stroke and then I go here, I'm going to see draw mode. Okay, so that might get you guys going crazy for your like, where's draw mode? You got to have your shape or your stroke selected before it'll give you that option, okay? Okay, so then I go in here and I just start doing very quick sketches. And I like using the soft pencil, this guy here. I like just going in and just creating a basic gesture of how I want him to kind of sit in place, right? Maybe he's got his hands out, maybe he's got like this hand kind of up here, right? And have like, think about like how I want him to be, like maybe he's holding the spoon or whatever, right? And I'm just working out the design of that pose. And I can have this hand, maybe he's like got this hand back, and maybe I have like a little bit of an armrest here, and hands out on the table, and I can think about like how the fingers are placed, yada, 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 right? Like it's just giving you time just to think about the pose, right? And I do a little face work here, nothing fancy, right? Get the angle of the head, and he's like, ooh, I see donuts, right? Right? I can think about that kind of stuff and draw that in, right? Like that's what this is for. This is the kind of work that you want to do. It's like 30-second sketches thinking about the performance, right? And when we're blocking in the face, we're blocking in the hands, we're blocking in all this basic stuff. If you want to throw like, little hairdo like he has here, feel free, I don't care. Like you don't have to do a lot, right? All I want is that, right? I just want you to think about shape design and, where you're going with the shot, right? That's what you're doing, okay? All right, you can draw like if you want to have the cup over here, draw the cup over here, right? And he's going to go down there, and he's going to put the spoon in the cup, and maybe you have the plate a little further over here, and he drags that over. Back the camera up, right? Like pull that back, give yourself some room, okay? Think about where you want things, think about the donuts, what you want to do. Just get it all out, like just plan your shot, right? And it's a hell of a lot faster to do this than messing around with 100 controls on a rig, right? So this is what we want to do. All right, so at that point, I'm just going to go through, and I'm going to just figure out those poses. So you can see here on my reference, I go, ooh, look at those donuts, right? I kind of pull in there, and I'm like, I want to capture that of me like, oh, look at those donuts, right? So I'm going to go in here, and I'll start working out that. So I have the character kind of bent in, right? Comes forward, and he's like, have the head forward here. Right? And he's like, oh, donuts. What do I want, right? And again, it's just working out that basic gesture. And then you can use the arrow buttons up and down and flip through the poses, right? That's what it's about. It's about working out your design, working out the emotions of the shot, right? And I continue just to work through here, right? And he can go back. And then he goes, oh, what do I want? He starts tapping his hands, right? So you can go back here, and I can then have him like kind of fall back in the seat, right? Look at like how I want that kind of back to be up here. Maybe I get the arm, and I put like a little armrest here. It's got like the fingers tapping on the table, right? And maybe I get like the tilted head, right? Thinking about like the tilt. Maybe he's like, oh, like I really want something, but I don't know what I want, right? And he's like, right? And then he's got like both hands come down. He's got like the cup in one hand, right? You can have him grab onto the cup. And this gives me the opportunity to plan, right? So this is what you want to do. This is gestural thumbnailing. This is animated thumbnails, right? You're just going to work through, and you're going to the first thing you're going to do is just work on your golden poses. getting those nice and clean. That's all you're worrying about. Once you got that done, you can go in and start adding in some basic breakdowns, right? Go in there, think about some spacing, think about what's happening at what times, utilize your exposure sheet, draw in, like if you want to have the tapping of the cup, draw those in, okay? Give it the information you need for a full plan, okay? So don't just put 3 poses, that's not gonna give you your shot. Actually animate it out. Like I would say anywhere from 10 to 20 poses, depending on the shot, okay, is gonna give you what you need to kind of go in and have a proper map of where you're going, okay? So when you got that done, all you're gonna do is do a play blast, right? So you need to go in and, let me just go back out here. And this is the quality of drawings that I'm looking for, right? Like I'm not looking for anything fancy. I'm looking at the performance, not the draftsmanship, okay? But I'm not looking for like still rigid drawings. I'm looking for gesture. There's a difference, right? I'm looking for the life of the pose, not like a rigid illustration, okay? Does that make sense? Think of the life of the gesture. Think of the life of the performance, okay? All right, so we have our drawings in there. We've kind of figured out, I've got our timeline here. We got our keys in here, right? It's all set up. All I want to do is export this out. You're going to do two exports, one that you can take into Maya. So one's going to be an image sequence. The second one's going to be a movie clip that you can upload onto your Sync Sketch, right? And submit to me. So to do both of those, if you go over here, you're going to see this little printer icon. It's the output icon. Okay, and there's a couple things in here you want to make sure is set up. Number one, your start and end frame. Make sure your end frame is to set what your actual audio clip is. So in this case, I think it's 216 frames. Right, so make sure that's set up. You can also change that down here if you want, 1 to 216. We're going to be resolution of 1920 by 1080. And down here, you want to tell it where you're going to put it. So I'm going to pick a location here. And I'm going to throw it here. I'm just going to say like 2 here, like that. Tell it to put it there. And this is your file output, right? So right now it's set up as a PNG. So that's what you want to set up for your image sequence. You want to turn it into a PNG sequence. You can bring that into Maya. It'll just be the images. So it'll be 216 images. So make sure you put it into a folder. And then if I want to change it to an MOV file, I'm going to go to FFmpeg. And I'm going to open up my encoder here. And I'm going to make sure that's 2.64, or sorry, H.264. And then I'm going to go down to audio, and I'm going to do an MP3 for the audio. Okay, and the rest should be all, that's all good. That's all you need. So when I want to create that, I'm then going to go up to the render, and then just render animation, right? And it'll take a few minutes, but it's going to just render that out, and it'll give you your whole animation as a movie clip in that folder, and you just put that into Sync Sketch, upload the file, okay? So for next week, that's the components that you're going to do. You're going to do the X sheet, and I'm okay. I uploaded a couple different versions of the X sheet. You guys can actually do a digital version if you want. There is a JPEG in there that you can open up in Photoshop, and you can just draw on a layer and work out your X sheet that way, or on your iPad or whatever you have. You can use the paper copy that I give you, and you can just use your phone, take a scan of it, make sure I can read it. But just take a scan of it for I can then read it, and you can upload that. You're going to have your animated thumbnails like this, okay? And you're going to have your video reference, right? Those are the 3 components that I'm looking for next week, okay? So you're going to submit that in the Part A final submission for 10% of the grade on this project, okay? So those 3 components, and take your time. Like the video reference should take you about an hour. Right? Working out your basic timing between the 2, another hour. Okay? Working out your gestures here, maybe another 2 hours. So you're looking at about 4 hours worth of work this week on this. Okay? Sound good? All right, and then this will give you a really good map with your timing breakdown, as well as now you've looked at your shapes, your gesture, your poses. gives you a really clear map to take into Maya and execute onto your blocking. Make sense?